Yeah, and we're talking hockey here on 93.1 CKCU. It's 6:43. It's a wintry day out there.
We're always talking hockey.
We're always talking hockey, but not always on CKCU.
Right.
That's true.
Sometimes in our own living room. Well, usually it is, I guess.
And speaking of what we were talking about in our own living room, last night one of the topics of conversation, speaking of promoting the game in the United States on this topic here, can anybody tell me what channel the World Junior Championships is on in the United States? They're hosting the tournament. No Americans went to their own game yesterday. How do you think, if you were an American player, Jeff, if you were a Canadian player, you're a Canadian, right? All right, you're from Newfoundland.
Right, I'm from Newfoundland. No, I'm not.
And you're playing for your country, World Junior Hockey Championships in Toronto.
Yeah.
And it's a semifinal game, and you're playing the Americans, and you walk in, and 85% of the building, probably more it looked like last night, were cheering for the United States of America. How would you feel playing in that game, just like it was last night?
Well, I mean, it would be a very, very odd feeling being in your own arena and having fans cheering for the opposing team and booing you. But I think Americans come to expect that, and I think that if you're their coach and you're looking to game plan around that, I think that's something you embrace. You say, hey, we're in our own building and Canadians are here. The Canadians are coming into this with this whole so-called underdog theme, but really they got all their fans out here. They got their own home advantage in our building. Let's embrace this. Let's come out here and, be the team that everybody hates, be public enemy number one, which is really what the U.S. is for any Canadians. And, I don't think they did the best job of that. But, if we were in that situation, I think that's what we'd want to do. But that being said, that would never happen because obviously hockey is, as we know, at Canada's game. And the fact that it's in Buffalo, well, there are a lot of Canadians that go to Buffalo. And just look at Bills games as an example. I know it's off topic, but you watch Bills games, and a huge part of their fan base is Canadian because Canadians love sports, and they will go across the border. And, that said, a lot of Canadians don't have the kinds of things to do, like in New York. There's not the entertainment district and everything, throughout Canada. And a lot of people just love to go to those games, and I think it's no problem getting people to go over to Buffalo.
All right, and getting back on topic to the hockey topic and even relating these World Juniors to our very own Carleton Ravens, the World Junior Selection Camp team played an exhibition game against the team that was selected to go to the university games to represent Canada in Turkey at the end of January. They open against Slovenia January 27th. Carleton's very own Brandon McLean was named to the team. Brad Good and Brad Albert got invites to the camp, didn't make the cut. Not really surprising that they didn't make the cut, considering the coaches from the University of Waterloo. He picked a lot. If you look at this roster, I'll just read off some of the names here. It's a lot of the players are from either McGill because they have an absolutely ridiculous roster. So you get the Francis Farrell Pauls, you get the Maxime Langelet Perrons, and Evan Vossens, who are having great years for McGill, and you're not going to deny one of the best teams in the country, or the best team in the OUA. Players, but a lot of them are from Western, a lot of them are from Waterloo, a lot of them are from Guelph. These may not be the best teams right now, from Windsor too, but, the coach is from Waterloo, and I imagine he just selected those players because he's familiar with them, kind of like Dave Cameron did with his junior team this year. He's familiar with them. He can develop some kind of instant chemistry just because he's watched these players a lot more than he's watched Brad Good and Brad Albert.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a smart move by the coach. In a short tournament like that, you want your team to come together, and you want to pick players who you know their tendencies, you know how they play, and you know that they're good guys, so the team can come together and win the important games, much like Canada did last night against the U.S.
Yeah, it's a good strategy, and I think they should be the favorites to win, hands down. But you know what? As a Carleton Ravens, I guess I consider myself a Carleton Ravens fan. I think we all do. We're not upset that Carleton's going to have Brad Good and Brad Albert back. These guys have very quietly as it's been, they haven't gotten a lot of recognition These two guys have very quietly been a very, very solid tandem defensively, and perhaps the biggest reason for Carleton's success, they haven't given up a ton of shots. They've been very solid defensively, and to have a first-year guy back there in Brad Albert to play the way he has, and the leadership they're getting from Brad Good, that's been a huge reason for their success this year.
And you know what? There were only 7 defensemen that could make the team, and Brad Albert's in his first year of university hockey. So, you know what, maybe not quite totally adjusted to the game, although I might argue otherwise. But you can see why he didn't make the team. Brad Good's the captain, but you know what, this team already has a lot of Brad Good, he's a guy that can help run the power play. He's a guy that can help spark a little bit of offense with that play. And you know what, this Canadian team has guys like Kyle Sonnenberg from Waterloo, Tim Priamo from Guelph, Dominique Jalbert from Ottawa, and Marc-Andre Dorion from McGill, who already give you that kind of physical yet offensive presence on this team. So a need for a set, maybe Brad Albert could have made this team over Brad Good, but a need for that kind of offensive defenseman isn't necessarily needed. And on forward, too, they have, forward, they've got a lot of firepower on this team.
But how will they match up against the Americans who are taking players from the NCAA, which could arguably be a higher competitive league than the CIS?
Yeah, and it probably is. I mean, the junior team has some university players, and they beat this team 6-2. But then again, that's the best of the best that juniors have to offer in future NHL sports.
Right, yeah. But as you were saying, a lot of these guys on the Carleton Ravens, and probably most of these guys on the international team that we're sending over to Turkey have OHL experience and have played in the OHL. So I don't see how they can't stack up against NCAA guys. I think that it'll be great competition. I'm excited to see how it goes, but I think I think we should be able to definitely win. If we're not favored, we'll definitely have a good chance still.
All right, quick question here before we start talking about weekend games for both these Carleton teams here. Brandon McLean makes the team, obviously. He's Carleton's best player. He's their leading scorer. He's been a point producer almost every single game.
He's a rocket on the ice out there.
He runs the power play. He plays that top guy role on Team Canada, but he's not going to be the top guy role. On Carleton, he's a top guy role, but on Canada, he's not going to be anywhere close to that, because you've got the Francis Barrow-Pauls, you've got the Charlons from UQTR, you've got Matt Correa on Lakehead, who's having a great year too. He's one of the leading scorers. You've got a lot of really good players.
Yeah, and I think that the reason that you mentioned and those names that you just mentioned, that's the reason that Team Canada takes someone like Brandon McLean. I mean, this guy isn't just an offensive force. He's very solid defensively. His two-way play is great. He's a great back checker. He's a great forechecker. He plays physically. He's just a force at both ends of the ice. If Team Canada comes in and takes all the offensive guys and everybody that wants to come in and score 1 million goals a game and be the hero every game, they might not win a lot of games. And you need some of those energy guys, those guys that are going to go into the corners and do the dirty deeds like Brandon McLean. And I think that he's going to be a huge asset to Team Canada. Also look at the leadership factor, more or less. Look where he's been in his career, and it's a no-brainer. If Canada didn't take him, I'd be very concerned.
Yeah, and Brandon McLean also, speaking of leadership, he was with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and they played the Guelph Storm a few years ago in a playoff series, and the Storm were not favored to win this series by any means, but they were playing some very good hockey, and they won the first game of that series. And after that, it was just his physical play, I remember watching, that just took over the Guelph Storm, just wore them down. And he's that kind of guy that doesn't really quit. He just keeps going. He wears his opponents down, and that's how he capitalizes. And I think that's what we're gonna get from him at these university games. And it's a great opportunity because he's gonna take this experience against some high level of competition, bring it back for playoff time for this Carleton Ravens team. Hopefully get his legs back, and there we go.